Sleeping Beauty. A Moment to Remember. Princess Aurora sighed. She loved being married to Prince Philip, but life in the palace was so different from what she was used to. Now that she had moved away from the humble cottage in the forest, it seemed all she did was plan and attend parties. That night there would be yet another royal ball, and everyone was fussing over the plans. The royal florist and the table setter couldn't agree on flowers. "Princess Aurora," said the royal table setter, "could you please tell the royal florist that our guests will never see one another if I put his big flower arrangements in the middle of each table?" "Why don't you just put a single flower on each table?" Aurora suggested. The two servants looked at her, horrified at her simple suggestion. Just then, Prince Philip entered the room. he started.
"Pardon me, Princess Aurora," the royal steward interrupted, "but I must have your approval on the seating arrangements."
"Thank you," said the princess. "I will look at them
as soon as we return,"
Prince Philip finished. Both Aurora and the steward looked at Philip in surprise. "Where are we going?" Aurora asked. Philip smiled.
"Out for a ride in the forest, by ourselves."
Aurora was delighted. It was just what she had been hoping for. The princess hurried to change into her riding outfit. But as the couple started to leave the stable, the royal equestrian guards insisted they escort the prince and princess.
"Who knows what dangers could be out there?"
the head of the guard said. Aurora knew that the forest was perfectly safe, so she leaned down and whispered to Philip's horse, Samson. The horse whinnied and charged away from the palace. Aurora's horse, Buttercup, galloped after them. Before long, the guards were far behind.
"Whoa, Samson!"
the prince shouted as his horse raced ahead. "It's all right, Philip," Aurora called. "We'll slow down as soon as we lose the guards." They galloped into the forest, and Samson found a path through the trees. The horse followed it for a while, then stopped very suddenly. Philip sailed over Samson's head and landed in a stream.
"No carrots for you, boy,"
Prince Philip scolded his horse. He looked up and saw Aurora trying to hide a smile. He grinned. "Do you remember this place?" Aurora asked. Philip waded out of the stream and looked around the clearing. He pulled off his boots and dumped the water out of them. Then he set them in the sun to dry. Aurora took off her shoes, too. She spun around gracefully, humming a tune.
"Yes,"
Prince Philip said softly.
"I remember this place. This is where we first met. I heard you singing sweetly, and then we danced together for the first time."
"I will never forget that day," said Aurora, "no matter how busy we get with our royal duties." Philip and Aurora smiled, wishing they could bring the peacefulness of the glade back to the palace. Philip picked a flower and handed it to Aurora. Aurora took the gift and beamed. After a beautiful afternoon together, Aurora finally said, "We should go back and get ready for the ball."
"You go ahead, dear," Philip said. "I'll be back soon."
Aurora nodded and smiled. Their walk had given Aurora an idea for the ball that night. She couldn't wait to surprise Philip. Meanwhile, Philip had an idea of his own.
"Not a word of this to the princess,"
he said to her animal friends as he began to gather some flowers. At the castle, Princess Aurora worked on Philip's surprise for the rest of the afternoon. Servants moved tables, laid tablecloths, and gathered flowers. Flora, Fauna, and Merryweather flitted about, helping wherever they could. More than once, Aurora heard a servant murmur,
"Our guests will certainly be surprised."
Aurora just smiled. "It is Prince Philip I want to surprise," she said. "Not a word of this to him." That night, Aurora had just finished getting dressed when Prince Philip came into the room. He held out a simple crown he had made from forest flowers.
"Would you like to wear this too?"
he asked. "Oh, Philip!" Aurora put on the flower crown and hugged him. "It's perfect for this evening. What a lovely gift." Aurora took Philip's hand. "Now I have a surprise for you." She led the prince down the stairs and into the palace courtyard. The courtyard was decorated with flowers and trees. Water danced in the fountain. Aurora's woodland friends were there too. "The glade will always be in our hearts," Aurora whispered. "But now it is in our palace too." Just then, King Hubert came over.
"This is much better than the stuffy balls I usually attend,"
he said to Princess Aurora. Aurora smiled at Philip, and they began to dance. Like the first time they had met. This would be a moment to remember.